What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to our Halloween ranking, where today we're getting a little bit controversial because it's time to talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween. And I say that because I'm acutely aware that y'all think that this is a trash movie made by a trash director. And that's absolutely fine. I'm not here to defend it, I'm not here to sell you on it or change your mind in any real significant way. Matter of fact, uh, even though I would consider myself to be a fan of his, there are still plenty of things that I would criticize and have zero problem doing so. For example, not everybody digs the 70s grindhouse aesthetic that he so loves to apply to most of, if not all, of his films. Um, I don't think he's particularly great at script and or dialogue writing. Um, I'm okay with vulgarity in my movies as much as the next guy. I think that there is a fine art to using it effectively to drive points home, and there's a time and a place for it. But in all of his stuff, it just seems like he throws it in there just because he can, just to be edgy, and it's so over the top and needlessly so 99.9% of the time. And then I'm not typically the biggest fan of his wife's acting. And I tried to go into this so desperately with that lens of this is a shitty movie that nobody likes, so let's try and pinpoint the reasons why. But I'm sorry, as hard as I tried, I just wasn't able to quite get there. And one of the chief complaints that I saw floating around the internet, one of many for that matter, is that Rob humanized a character that shouldn't have been or was never meant to be. And I do have to disagree and push back on that a little bit. Um, I don't necessarily see it as humanizing. I see it more as, he's telling the story of Michael Myers without relying on rehashing all of the Thorn trilogy stuff as a crutch. How do you do that? Well, you paint the character in the light of what we typically understand as a serial killer or psychopath, right? He's a kid who harms animals. He gets bullied in school. He has a shitty home life, an abusive stepdad, an older sister who's the typical teenager that probably wouldn't notice whether he was around or not, and a mom who is an easy target because of her job as a stripper. All of which come together to push him over the edge and drive him to commit the murders. And then during the time that he's incarcerated, he's gradually losing touch with his humanity and detaching more and more as he's enabled to hide behind the masks that he loves to wear. Um, and again, I don't necessarily see that as humanizing. Um, and I think if that's indeed a problem for you, then we need to examine the Thorn trilogy a little bit deeper. Because we have Halloween 5, where there's a scene to where Jamie is looking Michael directly in the eyes and saying something to the effect of, "Oh, you're just a man. You're just a human like me." And then in 6, where we kind of look at the entire principle of what the curse is and how it works, that basically insinuates that everything Michael is and everything that he does is because of it. and without it, he would pretty much just be uh, a normal, everyday 6 year old kid, right? Which would also, in a roundabout way, imply that he's a victim, right? He didn't choose to be cursed. He didn't choose to do anything that he's doing. It was forced upon him by the cult. Um, and I think all of that is far more damaging to the mystique around his character than anything Rob is doing here. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I understand the behind the scenes struggle of the making of the film. You know, when it comes to my writing, I obviously don't have a big studio or anybody else telling me what to do and how to do it. But I do sympathize with just kind of the creative nervousness behind wanting to put your own spin on something that you love so much, but still make it so it can be recognizable to the rest of the fan base and pay homage to the story and the characters that you fell in love with in the first place. That is exactly how I felt when writing Alan in Wonderland. So I guess I kind of sympathize with that, or I kind of connect with that in a certain way. Maybe there's something there. But like it or not, that's my number four in the ranking. And if you got a problem with it, I hate to break it to you, but you're not gonna like where I put number two, um, as in Halloween 2. But we will discuss that on another day. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one.